esiwakhayo kulo muzi. Thina iwo lo mlando esiwakhayo kulo muzi. Sibambaneni webawethu wemaduku. Sugcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Sizishiyela misa. Aswagcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Thina swagcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Sizishiyela abantwana.
Thank you. Be seated, please. My name is Muziwandile Hadebe, but I've allowed people to even to shorten it to Muzi, because it also has a meaning. Muzi is a home, sometimes it's a house, but in my case, it's a home, ikaya. So we're here today. I am with my colleagues who are from the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. But our component, it's archives. So we're from Archives Directorate. So we're just here for engagement. At what time, some time back, as you can see, these booklets, we as the archives were involved in the publication of these small booklets. That was 2012, during the centenary of the ruling party. So for us to be here, it comes from these things. This one was broad. We're looking at this at a national level. So through the UCC, we've decided to, together with her, to come here now just to localize part of this, to be engaged with communities, to start a dialogue, just to talk. We're no longer a talking nation. We're a fighting nation, full of hatred. Right from our families. Especially, in particular, families of the races that were once subjugated. The only thing that we know is just to fight. We fight a lot. One thing that used to puzzle me a lot, one part of me, I'm very fond of strikes. Right, each year, beginning of the year, my own child is here with me, goes to a tertiary school. Within days, my child is not striking here and is striking there at school. So the problem is not there at school, it is right here with me. And we've got issues, serious issues, people that they don't want to talk about. Just to give you an example, you know, when we talk of racism, people, they don't want us to talk about those things. But they are there every day. So how do we try as a people to start talking. So therefore, one of our components in the archives is called oral history. Yeah, and then maybe it's not right if we call it oral history, because the objective is to capture the stories of the people. Not all people talk about history. So the component was meant to document the oral tradition, a spoken word. So the archives that we have were created by the colonial settlers. They did a wonderful job of preserving the papers. But those papers that are there, what is there in the archives? It was once a spoken word. Hence this component. So we've been here in this house recording her, talking. We don't want any particular story. We want a person to tell his or her story for future generations. So these engagements that we are starting today is part of this. So let us localize this now and hear people talking. We stop this hatred. We have to talk. You know, what we have now is a blame game. Something happens at home, it's not me, it's my wife, or it's my children. And they also say the same thing, Baba, or Umama, and Umama says the same thing. No, everything starts with me. So we're very interested in those stories, hence we're here. So just feel free. We just want to talk. Yeah. Even our guest speaker, I would say our guest speaker, the person that will be speaking. Afterwards, let us engage her. Let us talk. That camera that you see there is for the government, it's for the archives. We are not selling this. It's not for commercial purposes. We're just going to keep it there. It's part of our collection. So that is the main reason why you are here. But as we go on, we'll talk. Let me ask Dr. Vugile Kumalo to come here for. We'll come this side or that side. Which one?
I can cut because of my.
Oh, okay. So this is our boss. This is a provincial archivist. Yeah.
Sanibonani, goeiemorgen, good morning. Ngijabula kakhulu ukuthi ngibe la namhlanje. It has always been my dream to have something at this venue. Ever since uMakhulukhulu told me about it, and I've listened to Sis Greta's interview, it has always been my wish that we host an event here. Because I think it's instead of taking an event to a government facility, sometimes it also makes a lot of sense to go to the community and be with them and see how they raise issues where they live instead of passing them at a particular government facility. We are really grateful that you have allowed us to be here. But most importantly, she charges some fees for people who want to use this venue. But from her heart this time, she decided not to charge us for any fee. So as government, we are using this facility for free. I think that deserves our appreciation. And I am very honored to introduce Mrs. Greta Apalgren-Narkedien as our guest speaker this morning. She is ngesiZulu bathi umtsinsi wokuzimilela, meaning her roots are in this area. But over the years, she has traveled to different continents and gained a lot of knowledge. And also she has worked in all spheres of government. Her CV paints a picture of someone who has been really at the cold face of service delivery. She has been a board member of the National Municipal Demarcation Board. That's a very critical task that you have to do, because you decide whether this river that has clean water is going to fall in that ward or this ward. Whether you like those folks or you don't like those folks, and you'll say, no, this river must come to these guys who like us. But I'm sure she served on that committee with distinction. She has also been head of department for human settlement in our very own province, KZN. And also she has been head of department for cooperative governance, human settlement, and traditional affairs in the Northern Cape. Again, head of department for social development in the Northern Cape. Deputy Director General in the National Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. And has also been a director in strategic management support to head of government in the Department of Health in the Eastern Cape. She has also been a director in the head of Social Policy Directorate in the Eastern Cape, and the director of special projects in the Northern Cape. You can see that she has been really involved in all the things that we as government are trying to do to make the lives of all of us better. But also, in addition to her work that she has done for government, she has also been involved in non-governmental organizations as a manager for Durban Child, Family and Community Care Centre, and also Community Development Coordinator of the Child and Family Community Centre, and also a professional social worker of the Child and Family Welfare Society. As I said at the beginning, that she has also traveled in various parts of the world. She has been to Finland, Canada and Sweden. In Finland, she participated in the Public Service Information Management Training and application of technology by local government in improving service delivery. When she was in Canada, she participated in the Public Service Management Training and gained exposure to the Canadian government approach to strategic management at provincial and local level. The training was facilitated by the Canadian Development Agency. When she was in Sweden, specifically Stockholm, she participated in public service management and training and gained exposure to the Swedish government approach to strategic development at provincial and local government. And the training was facilitated by the Swedish Development Agency. She is currently the owner and CEO of Imizumbe Development and Trading 600. It's a company that she owns currently. She became the CEO. The organization was founded in 2018, and she was the founder, and she is the current CEO of this particular organization that is our host this morning. It is really a great pleasure that I introduce to you someone who has really vast experience to share with us her experience maybe not in government today, but at some point we'll come back here to just to get her to talk about her own experience at these different spheres of government, so that we can document the memory of the state for future generations. But this morning, I think we are here to learn. I've seen that you have quite a long lecture there. So we are all yours. We will listen attentively, and I'm really humbled to be able to be part of this occasion. And on that note, I would say thank you so much for agreeing to teach us this morning. Thank you.
Okay, I have to use the mic because I don't have a very powerful voice. But can you hear me at the back? Oh, good. Are you sure?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, go for recording. Okay. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for coming. And thank you to the department for agreeing to do this historical program. It's so unfortunate that we don't have a lot of people, especially at the local community. Well, from the Ward 68 is mostly so-called colored and so-called Indian. It's most unfortunate, but it's not surprising because I think it was about 2 months ago, the ward councillor called a meeting in the community hall there to talk about the water bill, because we're all suddenly getting all these water bills after the April floods. And the other one was, I think the rates, property rates. They were crying on Facebook and on WhatsApp groups. I think not more than 50 people turned up in a hall for 500 people. So I don't know, maybe people are depressed. They feel none of the problems can be solved. So, why bother? Let's just sit at home and cry, snot and trana. And maybe, God will provide somehow. But God is not our servant. We are His servants. But anyway, the idea was to talk about the role of minorities in the struggle. That's now pre-94, but also now, because for us, when I say us, I'm meaning us coloureds, Indians and whites, we didn't even imagine after 1994 that when we were all so excited, so happy, this apartheid finally fell, all the laws were abolished in June 1991, we went and voted for the first time in, I don't know how many decades. We did not anticipate that we would be treated as something is wrong with you, or you had your turn. No, we didn't have our turn. So, but we also realized that black communities suffered far more, or maybe in numbers far more, than colored and Indian. Well, we've never believed that white people suffered, but there was the poor whites. But even so, we don't know that story so well. So we've been patient for the past 27 years. So there is a build-up of all kinds of pain and frustration in colored and Indian communities, because why are you still treating us like coloreds and Indians? And sadly, if I think about the experiences I've had from young black people, like, okay, when I wear my hair like this, I'm an Indian. When I wear my hair in my nice afro, then I think some people get confused. But, the way I get treated is the same way white people treated us during the apartheid era. Like, I'm in the queue, it's my turn to be served, I'm told to go to the back of the queue. Because there's a whole lot of white people that want to serve the white people first. So I'm having the same experiences from young black people, screaming at me, like, you're a nuisance. Who could have anticipated that? Especially people like us who gave our lives, our youth. We knew we were going to die long before freedom came. And we said, it's fine, we will die just like all the other comrades before us. Now look, now God decided, no, you will not die. You will see. This country will not be as free as you think it's going to be. That's a huge disappointment. But anyway, I will tell you something about the torture that we went through, but you won't see me crying. I used to cry a lot before. I actually laugh about it. And I know it's a nervous reaction, so when you see me laughing, when I'm telling you about how they suffocated me with the ordinary Checkers packet, those shopping bags, I'm not being, how can I say, arrogant about it. I mean, I survived it, even after I collapsed on the floor, and these two torturers thought I was dead. And but I think I just fainted. So when I laugh at that, because now I remember the expression on their faces when I woke up. I'm on the floor. I woke up. I see the one's biting his fingernails. Same one was torturing me. Why is he so nervous? I'm the one who should be nervous. And the other one is looking white like a sheet. So I laugh at that when I look back. I know I shouldn't laugh, but I don't. But it's a coping mechanism, right? Those of you who studied psychology. The brutality of those, and these are all white men, mostly Afrikaans speaking, they were exceptionally brutal. All right, we told ourselves we deserved it because we were fighting against, not against white people, we wanted the system to end, the apartheid system. But I know a lot of white people don't understand that. They really thought we were just hating them and wanted to kill them. It wasn't like that. But anyway, this concept of minorities, it's a worldwide concept. So we shouldn't feel something is wrong with us when now we are forced to look at ourselves and say, look, I'm a South African, and then someone says, no, you're Indian, you're colored. Now these are again young black people who still feel those racial classifications are important. Maybe they are, but for us who must carry those tags, we don't think so. Okay, I can't speak for white people because I have not heard how they feel about still being told you're a white person. But us Indians and coloreds, we don't like it. It hurts us when you say to us, this is who you are. But yeah, so people get marginalized because of your religion. If I think it's Lebanon, which is predominantly an Islamic country, but the Christians who are there, and mostly Catholics, they are seen as a minority, but at least they are respected as a minority. There are actually reserved seats in that parliament, and they're treated like people who do have rights, and we will give you what you're entitled to. If you force me to pay taxes and my rights to the municipality, then you must give me something in return. Otherwise I won't pay. And okay, you'll come and evict me and sell my house. But I pray that day doesn't come when the minority, small as we are, we can't take it anymore. And we respond in a way that society didn't expect. Same thing with white people. During the apartheid era, white people never believed that colored people and Indian people will rise up against them also. They had such stereotypes and were so convinced of that. Then when we used to come through the Ramatla-Bama border post between Botswana and South Africa, coming through very conservative white towns, they would not even bother to search us. And yet we're the ones who are bringing in AK-47 rifles, RPG rocket, weapons of war. But of course it's carefully hidden and grease smeared on them that not even the sniffer dogs could pick it up. But the important thing is that we knew they were not going to bother themselves, but it's just colored people. When we come to a roadblock, we actually put our faces out so they must see our eyes just clearly mensa. As they're raising their hand to, how they say, stop! Before the man says stop, we are already slowing down. The obedient colored, because that's what they thought we were. The obedient colored who loves white people and do anything for white people. That is not true. Maybe in places like the Western Cape and Northern Cape, where on those wine farms and those commercial farms where they were severely oppressed, that they still had that feeling of, how can I say, we're not good enough. We will never be good enough. But, so we would greet them, put our heads out, more oom, more meneer, more meneer. That humility kind of thing, because that's what they thought colored people were to them. We would never hurt them, we would go on our knees and worship them. So we would do all those things. Then they would scream and swear at us and say, hey man, dis net klein mense. Yes, but we're the ones who are riding through with your permission, full of AK-47 rifles, weapons of war. I've never felt good about it, but somebody had to do it. This was now in the 80s. The 80s was a terrible time in the country. You would hear about black-on-black violence. There's no such thing as black-on-black violence. It was instigated by the South African Defence Force. I mean, all the security forces. Not because I say so, but because the British did an investigation. Why is there so much violence in the 80s in that country? And they came at the time when the violence was going on, and then they saw things and they heard things, compiled a report. That's how economic sanctions were strengthened by the British and the United States, and that's what broke the back of apartheid. It wasn't all our resistance, it wasn't all of us oppressed people, black, colored, Indian, even some white people joining forces to fight that system. I mean, for how many decades did we fight it? From 1948, when the apartheid government took over, and in the 60s they came with all that cruel laws. But there came economic sanctions which hurt all of us. Do you remember economic sanctions in the 80s? Coca-Cola closed down all their factories. A lot of poor people lost their jobs. But the important thing was that we learned a lesson. If you're fighting a system like apartheid, or any government for that matter, you must hit them in their pocket. Because no amount of political campaigning and begging and praying and all that was helping. So, to me, that was a lesson learned. Maybe we should never even have had the armed struggle. We should have just intensified the economic battles with them, hurt them in their pockets. But again, so we fought on every level. In the 60s, in fact, how can I put it? When the Dutch came here in 1652, the first time they came, it was a friendly. You want what? Oh, you want sheep, you want cattle? All right, what will you give us in return? This fine. But when he came back the second time and was building that fort, I mean, the Khoi and the San, like every indigenous group of people anywhere in the world, fought back and attacked them. Now, the sad thing is that in history, we were taught that the Bushmen were a timid group of people, very stupid people. I'm calling them Bushmen because that's what they called them, but we called them according to the different tribal groups. Like I'm Griqua, so I will talk about the Griqua. There's the Korana, there's the Namakwa. I don't know how many, but there's so many. But we don't care anymore. You can call us Bushmen. In fact, now that I mentioned that word, we used to travel on the same buses from town to Jacobs, and then we would get off there, or some of the black people would get off there and take a joining bus to Lamondville, and then we coloureds come this way. So when there's fights on the buses, and then the black people will sway us and call us Busman. I'm a Busman. And they would say with so much contempt that, hey, we just feel weak. It's like someone using the K word on you. It hurts you so deeply. So as a teenager sitting on the buses and hearing that, I never realized, I know you may not like to hear me say that, but from that young age I already knew that all races are capable of being racist. You'll hear stories that a black person can't possibly be racist. What I have seen during the apartheid era alone, especially where a black woman and a white man had a child together, even though it was against the law, the white man would then go into hiding, but the black mother would come to us with her child. White skin, blonde hair, blue eyes. Or white skin, red hair, green eyes. How can you please take my colored child and give it to a colored family? Why? It's your child, raise him. She says, but he is being ill-treated by my family, my neighbors, or the child's already preschool or school-going age. No school, black school wants to take him. The clinic doesn't want to vaccinate him. Widespread rejection. So, but as a social worker, you have to make a decision that's in the best interest of the child. And that decision is to stay with his own mother, but we can't because she's giving him away to you to find a colored family. And when we don't, what happens? They get abandoned, left in the street or left in the bushes. Those are the things that used to hurt me deeply about the apartheid system. You may say, but how many children suffered like that? Well, I don't know the statistics. These things weren't properly recorded. But what I know, I saw unnecessary separation. But anyway. So, but okay, in the 60s, when all that apartheid legislation was coming out like real madness, there were so many colored and Indian organizations who joined up together with the black organizations, and they fought apartheid. They had their own, that's why I've got all these papers here. I can't remember the names of them. The names are so long. For example, there was the non-European unity movement. You ever heard of that? Yeah. And to this very day, what they have now, and it's mostly colors, militant colors to this very day, who joined and worked with the ANC, but now hate the ANC because they feel, whether it's right or wrong, maybe it's just a perception, but they feel, how can I put it, that the ANC does not care for even its own black people, and we now worse colors than Indians. So it's a non-European unity movement. Now, why it says non-European? Because in the early days of racial classification, you were either a European or a non-European. And on the benches, Europeans only, non-Europeans. And then I don't know how it changed to white, black, colored, and Indian. But in the 70s, the apartheid government did become really crazy about racial classification. We are 7 sisters in the Apalgren family, but one of them is very dark just like my father's mother. She's sitting on the floor there. You see that picture on the top? That little girl on the floor. That's her, and that's her mother, Granny Magwaza, and that's the husband, Mr. Booth from Britain. So let me not go too much away from the topic. But anyway, all these political organizations of the coloureds eventually joined forces with the ANC, and with the ANC around about that time of the Freedom Charter, shortly before the Freedom Charter, that would be 1956. Yeah. And then the defiance campaigns of the 1960s. So you had all these political organizations. They were not parties then, just organizations fighting together. But during the 70s, during the Black Consciousness movement, the coloureds, even right here in this township, were all joining forces with the Black Consciousness movement. And that was the most beautiful thing ever, because what Black Consciousness taught us is that you don't have to straighten your hair to be accepted by white people, and white people to understand that you are brilliant, you've got brains. Because they try to convince us that if your hair is curly or frizzy, it means your brains is not good. I think, how is that possible? Here we are at university. We they say Bantu education. It's also colored education that was manipulated to groom us in a certain way. But that Black consciousness, thinking and feeling, I told you, I'm black, but I'm beautiful. I don't have to have a white skin to be beautiful. That was wonderful. It was so liberating. And if you walk in the street and a white person deliberately bumps you, before we'd say sorry, now we say, hey. The white person says, it helped you to fight back. And we had to fight back. At that young age, you realize, in my early 2021. That's how long it took me to realize I don't have to straighten my hair. My hair is a big bush like that, and I can do whatever I want to with it. Except that when I was in the torture rooms there in the Siarsat Square, and my hair was standing in a big afro like that. What year was that? 1986. Yeah. This guy, this warrant officer grabbed me by my hair with both his hands, and he was swinging me in the air. And he just drops me like that. The pain, over your scalp. When your mother used to do your hair and she makes the ponytail 2 times. Because you can't cry, because she's going to hit you, For all the terrible things they did, I didn't cry, I didn't scream. But with my hair, phew, I was asking myself, if I had known I was going to be arrested, a few days' time, I would have cut my hair that short. This man would not have had this big cruise afro now to swing me this way and that way. But we were very involved as the coloureds and Indians, and black people, in the black consciousness movement. By then the ANC was banned, so they couldn't do much in the country. So we have done a lot, we have fought a lot. Before I move away from that era, you must tell me how much time I've got left. Basil February, that road is called Durban Road. Now that's a historical road, because, how can I put it, the apartheid government also didn't seem to understand building houses and schools and clinics for coloured people, since they separated us, and for Indian people and black people. But for white people, they just built everything, and everything was there. So there we had coloureds and Indians staying in a where that road today is, Durban Road, which is now called Basil February Road. A lot of shacks, people built those shacks themselves, and then the municipality brought the bucket toilets. It's the first time I used a bucket toilet in my life. And it was called, what's it not called? Shantytown or Tin Town. Is anyone here who can remember? What was it called? Shantytown. Yeah. So anyway, eventually they cleared it, and they put the people in temporary structures, and those temporary structures were built just like, when you're going to Pietermaritzburg, there's those the chicken factory. Rainbow chickens. So they built these barracks for the people. You stay here, the coloured people, and you Indians go stay over there in this barrack type, just like rainbow chickens. So the locals called it rainbow chickens. When you say, where do you stay? I stay in rainbow chickens. Oh, you stay in Pietermaritzburg? No, man, down the road there, that side. So now, anyway, a few years ago, we heard that road, which was called Durban Road by the municipality, or whoever, I don't know, Basil February Road. We said, what? They're naming that road after a white man. Why? No, he's not a white man. Then who the hell is he? No. This Basil February was a trained freedom fighter, Mkonto was Sizwe freedom fighter. Him and another a coloured guy, James April. So it's Basil February and James April. I'm coming back to that one. Why in Cape Town do you find so many coloured people whose surnames is January, February, March, April, May, right up to November? But I've not come across any one of them who've got December. Have you come across anyone? But okay, we can't park that one. So we're upset. So they're explaining now that these two coloured guys, together with other comrades, black comrades, were in the first detachment who had gone for training. That was now in the 60s, late 60s or early 70s. I think it was late 60s. And they came back into the country through Zimbabwe, the Zambezi River. Am I saying it right? So, they were in this Lutuli detachment. These two coloured guys together with the other races. But he was a very young and such a handsome guy. When you see this picture, not just the handsome men mustn't go and fight. When I looked at this picture, I thought, oh, shame, what a wonderful, handsome guy. And he was studying medicine. His career, he wanted to be a doctor. Little did the poor thing know that his soul would not allow him to see all this torture going on in coloured communities, in black communities. So when there was a call for people to join up, he went and joined up. Which he didn't have to. He didn't come from a poor family. Even myself and Robert McBride. In fact, the entire unit, the Special Operations Unit, from this ward, who were locked up in Robben Island, Robert on death row, myself, in 5 different prisons, but eventually at Klerksdorp prison. Klerksdorp was at Western Transvaal. Which of those Transvaals? I can never remember where was the east and where was the north.
Yeah, Western Transvaal.
Yeah, which is now Northwest Province. So, since I lose track of my thinking now. Okay, I'll come back to it. But anyway, I was trying to say that it's not only people who are poor and suffering I don't have food to eat, I have a violent father and mother. It's not that. It's what your Christian beliefs tell you. It's a spiritual thing to decide. I can't do a political campaigning against the system. All the organizations are banned. You can't even wear a political T-shirt with Nelson Mandela's face on, you get arrested. This was in the 80s when the apartheid government was so crazy about holding on to the country for themselves. So, so the majority of us in this ward, we came from middle-income families. We were educated, university educated. Some of them were still at school, but they were completing matric already. I mean, one of them, the police, the security forces went right into his classroom and arrested him. And all those grade 12 matric people were screaming, they couldn't believe it. They could have arrested him at home. Why do you arrest him in front of other young people? Now you're traumatizing them. Now you are inspiring them to also take up arms. But anyway, so this Basil February came from a reasonably decent home. He was already first year medical school. But he was the first one to die coming back into the country because they sort of sent one to go and scout. And somehow the colored people, when it comes to fighting, I don't know what it is, that we are there in front. In this township, before they started to get guns and all that, for some reason the gangsters used to use mostly screwdrivers. And I don't know if he called machetes. That long, we used to call it panga or panga. Yeah, it's like a bush knife. But anyway, but now they are fighting with serious weapons. One morning they were shooting, it was, what are we now, in 2020. No man, in the schools, no, it's 2019. They were shooting the drug lords now. They were, when the army went into the Western Cape to go and deal with the drug trade and the gang violence, some of them came here to try and sell their drugs. Needless to say, I don't care, you colored Indian, you're coming to sell your drugs, and it's not going to happen. So the war was so bad that this one morning, 7:45, as the pupils are going into the school, a car loaded with colored men using an AK, not an AK, an automatic rifle, but very similar to an AK-47, not the Chinese version, copying the Russians. But it was so dangerous because remember with those rifles, you just pull, you put the switch on, you pull the trigger once, and 5 bullets in an hour come out at once. The children, they were so traumatized, the high school pupils. And you could hear it, that the noise was so loud from a distance. So we are so used to violence that I think even when we were being tortured there, like even being strangled, I don't know, you somehow get, this one sociologist, the late Professor Fatima Mir, she said, communities like ours, we become desensitized to physical pain, psychological pain, death, blood shooting out of people. So if you want to maybe say it couldn't just be political or spiritual to join the armed struggle, all those of us who joined it, including us coloureds and Indians, and some whites actually, but I'll just remind me, I'll come back to that one. That thing about being desensitized, but for me, it was definitely a spiritual thing, because I knew I'd reached a point in my life where I either fight or I sit back and I tell myself, you're not a human being. You are as good as the worms and the frogs. That's what you are. If you don't go the last leg, that's the armed struggle. And it's very painful to be involved in violence, especially when you hear, 3 women died. Remember the Magoo's blast? It wasn't a nice feeling. And all the men who were injured, it was about 80 of them, all white, and the majority were all ex-soldiers, policemen, they were all off duty. But the fact of the matter is someone did the reconnaissance, and that was targeted because it was a favorite hotel of those security forces, including those who tortured us there. I would not have known that. But when we were being tortured, just before he put the shopping bag over my head, the plastic shopping bag. The interesting thing is, when he opened the drawer and he was fiddling with all these shopping bags, I'm thinking, this man is torturing me. Why is bothered now with this Checkers and Spar shopping bags? I couldn't understand. He takes it out, holds it up like it's not big enough or whatever, not suitable. Little did I know he was going to put it on my head. But anyway, just before he did that, he said to me, you know, we all suffered in that blast. Him and 4 other of his friends who worked there in the security branch, those who used to torture us there on the 13th floor. They were all sitting in their car and having a drink. He said because the alcohol, the prices of the liquor in that hotel, Moguza and why not buy? It's too expensive. We couldn't afford it. So we used to buy our own alcohol, sit in the car and get nice and drunk. Then we'd go inside. Now, I always used to stand at attention and just look and listen to them. I'm too scared because when you speak, they seem to get provoked. So he says, now they were nice and drunk. That's when the blast went off. Boom! He said, the force of that blast, because look, they were sitting just behind Parade Hotel. Look, there's the beach side and then there's that side. So he says, and you know, Greta, what that blast did to our car? It swung it like this, and then like that. And he's making the action and thinking, and then, look, you're alive. Look, I'm laughing now, but I wasn't laughing then. So I'm listening to the story. And it went on and on. It was swaying like that. And we could not believe that an explosion had happened. And we also could not believe it was you colours who were killing us. So he said, and you know, that's a favourite spot. It's our favourite drinking spot and a dancing spot of us off-duty security personnel. So that's why the car bomb had to be put there. It's not a good memory, but I try to tell it as often as I can. Because a lot of people feel that we just wanted to hurt any white person. And yes, those 3 who died were not employed by the security forces. So, okay, so that was Basil February and many other colored people and Indian people who fought in the armed struggle. Many of them were severely assassinated violently in those countries where they were operating. So the South African security forces went right into Swaziland, Lesotho, Mozambique and killed them. And Paris, there was a colored woman who was killed there. She was campaigning on our behalf. She's from Cape Town in Athlone, educated woman, a teacher, for economic sanctions, the intensifying of economic sanctions. So that's why now, when we're looking at our country and we're seeing, but you really think, I mean, because I know it's not the politicians really, okay, there's some of them, but there's the old guard who understand that this was going to be a non-racial country, that even white people would be treated fairly and with the same respect that we want all nations. We would be one nation. Do you remember during the apartheid era how the Afrikaans politicians would always say, I may not be pronouncing the Afrikaans correctly, but die volk, die nasie, those concepts, the nation, one nation, but it's one white nation. In other words, it's all of us English and Afrikaans speaking. We're entitled to all these wonderful things. We build ourselves as one white nation. We used to laugh at that. Now we understood it was going to be one nation, all races. So we could not have anticipated that was, now it's not the case. And some of the black leaders I have met who are so racist were not initially in the ANC. They were in other structures, but they were absorbed into the ANC. And I don't think they were forced kicking and screaming, but they were lured. With nice financial what. So you shouldn't be having such people in very important decision-making positions. Look, the policies is one thing. Now to implement, to decide on implementation, then you decide. It's in here. No coloured or Indian will ever get a house here in eThekwini. This is what he's telling me, the head of Department for Human Settlements. And I'm thinking, I know you. I know everything about you. You don't understand the struggle. And the struggle now for us coloureds and Indians, it continues, a luta continua, which we're not happy about. So coming back to the Basil February and the James April, what the English did, very cruel, what do you say, colonialists, when the slaves were brought into into South Africa, into the harbour of Cape Town, as they got off the ships, if you came in January, because they couldn't pronounce their surnames, I mean, these were mostly guys from Indonesia, Malaysia, so they had these names like Abdullah, like my ex-husband, his name is Fahim. It's spelled Fahim, but I have to pronounce it as Fahim. When he was telling me his name was Friday, I can't pronounce it. Can't I just say Fahim? So the English couldn't pronounce them, so that's what they did. As the slaves came off the ships, right, you came in January, you're all having the surname of January, because you can't pronounce that surnames of yours. Then February, March, April, and so on. Maybe in December, no slaves got off the ships, I mean. But they also gave them other horrible names, just to degrade them, to humiliate them. So, and then of course came the coloured and Indian parliaments. You know, the House of Representatives for Coloureds and the House of Assembly for Indians. That, I mean for whites, House of Delegates for Indians. That made no sense whatsoever. But anyway, we all campaigned under the banner of the United Democratic Front. I don't know if you remember that structure. Yeah. And interestingly, all races joined and we fought like cats and dogs together. That's why today now, when we are being isolated and marginalized, you think, why? Even white people were there, especially the white students from the University of Cape Town. I mean, they gave their lives and their careers. Okay, they didn't die, but they were severely tortured and harassed and their lives made hell. So, yeah, there was a lot of campaigning there. And the man who led that United Democratic Front was a coloured man from a small farming town called California, that's in the Karoo. And this is a man who was a Domini. He was taught in the Christian ways of life and beliefs of the Dutch Reformed Church. And this is the man that said, what the Dutch Reformed Church, white people's church, said was wrong. This is what the Bible actually says. So he led that United Democratic Front with so much passion and charisma. And the country was moving that time. And the whole world was moving to support the end of apartheid. That's all we wanted. We didn't want to kill white people. We're not interested in them dying. So unfortunately, the security forces realized that, very charismatic men like that, they easily attract women. How can I put it? I don't know how to explain it. But I think the women, you understand what I'm saying. Yes. When you see a very dynamic man, whether he's a singer, he's a pastor, whatever, you start falling in love with this man. So anyway, they used two women to, the one insisted she did not seduce him, but I think she must have. Because he eventually, married man that he was, and a man of, of the church. So he fell to that temptation, if I can call it temptation. Then he was exposed and whatever, and then that ended. And then he goes and fall in love. How it happened, I don't know. Also looked like a seduction, and the security forces admitted that they orchestrated that. But he loved that journalist, the second white woman. And she loved him so much so that he divorced his wife. But anyway, so the fall of this man was so sad, because now sex came into the picture. Such a great man. When you listen to his speeches, and if you've seen videos of Reverend Martin Luther King, yes, it was the same dynamism and the same spiritual, it was more spiritual and real than how can I say, socialism and communism. You can forget about that. It's beautiful to read it, socialism and communism, but implementing it is another story. And advanced capitalism is also disgusting. Capitalism, they all have their advantages and disadvantages. But anyway, most people joined that fight because it was not an ANC fight or black consciousness fight or communist fight or so. It was just a fight by everybody to get rid of the laws of the country, actually. That was the main thing we wanted to get rid of. We didn't want to really go and sit next to white people in their blue buses. Remember in the apartheid era, there was blue buses and green buses. Colors and Indians and blacks, there's for you green buses. So we'd all be chock-a-block tight. White people had a lot of space. We were not looking forward to sitting next to them. So even when the Group Areas Act ended, we didn't run and go and sit next to them or hug them. No. We didn't, well, let me end it there. But anyway, we campaigned against those two parliaments, the Coloured People's Parliament and the Indian People's Parliament. Well, they were already the homelands, remember? The so-called independent states, sovereign states. How can you have a sovereign state within a state? I mean, it was, I say it's just dom thinking. And sadly, it didn't actually work. But anyway, come the 1990s, when we were preparing to take over government, because in 1991, the National Party signed off, okay, the Group Areas Act, we hereby abolish it. They said, oh, praise the Lord, hallelujah. All those pieces of apartheid legislation, they were signing it, abolished. June 1991, what a wonderful day. Wonderful. So then as we were preparing all our RDP policies and the new constitution, some people, it was mostly white people though, said, please, we have to put a clause in the constitution of the new South Africa that says the minorities shall be protected. We said, what protection? We don't need no protection. We're going to be one nation. If we only knew, we should have agreed to that protection of minorities, colored Indians and whites. Because look now, when we open our mouths and talk, they say you are racist. If it was in the constitution, they said, look what the constitution said. Colored people are entitled to 1, 2, 3, and whites and Indians. So, but I don't know what what is the best way. I think maybe I can end there, just to say the racial stereotypes that white people had of us, especially the white security forces. And what I was telling you earlier on, that they never thought that we would rise up against them. In those same interrogation rooms, the very first day, when they took me into the room and they closed it, one woman standing in front of 5 men, and then they're all coming at me, and then one will stand right here, then they'll go away, like, spread out in this room, a very small room, say from here to about where that chair is, and that wall, maybe to about here, and there's only a desk and a chair. So they keep doing that, and I'm just, I am so overwhelmed. Plus, they introduce themselves. I'm Colonel Botha, Captain Botha, Major Botha. The groot mannen are going to kill me. So I was so anxious. But as they were screaming at me, they kept saying, we didn't think you would do this to us. We didn't think. And because I was so terrified, I was just praying. They didn't know I was praying, but I was saying, oh, Father, who art in heaven. I just said the whole prayer over and over and over, because the way they're screaming and swearing at me and going away and coming at me, I was overwhelmed. But I prayed. I was standing days and nights. And unfortunately, when I was arrested, I was wearing high heels. Now I must stand days and nights with high heels. Well, in the 80s, there was this cork shoe. It was only that high. Thank God it wasn't the stilettos of today. What you call those ones? That's very long. Plus in the front it's got that thing. Platform. Thank God it wasn't a platform, because I would have been standing like that. And after a while I was not loosening my feet, and this one Captain Botha, very cruel of all of them. He said, what's wrong with you? So I said, no, my feet are burning in the shoes. So what, you want to take them off? I said, ooh, there's a trick question. If I say yes, he's going to say, well, keep them on. So I said, no, there's nothing wrong. In fact, I'm more comfortable with these high heels on. Then he said, take them off. I thought, glory, hallelujah. You know, I tricked them quite a few times because, I mean, they make my life so difficult. And they were not listening to me. So, okay, I think I did mention this one, where bringing the arms into the country and actually getting through roadblocks purely because these people didn't think for a moment that you can't trust colored people either. Even when we had to move the weapons from where they were stored in the township to different people who were professionally trained. And there was a lot of, we used to call them Caspers. I don't know what they call them now, these big military trucks where these soldiers are sitting in there. They were guarding the oil refinery, the two, Sapref and Engine. Now, we can't be frightened now. They're riding here on our main road, Oosterville Drive and Lansdowne Road, all these main roads. We have to move. So we move, we're driving these Koro cars, loaded with these things. But when we see them, we slow down. As the Caspers come, we say, Mora Jan, because it's mostly young white Afrikaans. And they all seem to be called Johan, and Jan for short. So we simply say, Mora Jan, Mora Jan. So they don't suspect, phew, these young friendly ones, I'm sure they're the ones that got the bombs in the car there. They don't think. Because now we are colored, you can trust colored people. No, you can't trust us. So maybe I can just end to say, you know, when the July riots of last year, my God, how painful was that? Must know where we live, besides the two oil refineries and Mondi's paper mill, like just 2-3 kilometers away, the harbor, the back of the harbor is just maybe about 3 kilometers. There's a big military installation up there on the bluff. So we were trapped here with all this dangerous environment. And the WhatsApp messages and the TikTok speeches by that handsome son of Jacob Zuma, Dudu Zani, with a suit, speaking in British English. Like a perfect gentleman. How can you be a perfect gentleman and you're saying all these terrible things about what the RET force is? No, he's addressing the youth. That he's going to be, don't worry, I'll be the new president in 2024. I will reset the country, wada, wada. And then you can see clearly it's all about RET, Radical Economic Transformation, those forces. And then other young people go into white suburbs and kill white people. That's what they were saying it on the WhatsApp. And why must you kill them? Because they represent white monopoly capital. I mean, the link of white monopoly capital, Johan Rupert, Stellenbosch, and white people here. So I thought to myself, this young man, you can see he was in his late 30s, early 40s. I listened to him over and over because I couldn't believe what he's saying. Doesn't you know there's no white suburbs anymore? There are grey suburbs. So if you go into the bluff here, this previously white area, and you see a mansion and you bomb it, only to find, no, it's one of the MECs, a black MEC and his family, maybe his extended family too. So he will not be killing white people. It was painful. And then I remembered how white people used to say just before the 1994 elections, we must be careful of swart gevaar. We must not let black people win this election. We used to laugh at them. Swart gevaar, what do you mean? Black people are going to kill us after 94. You mad, will never do it. 27 years later, let's go and kill them. So it really made us think, hey, we lost the battle to build a beautiful united nation. We lost it. And we never thought we would lose it. But anyway, that is my case.
Oh. Sisi? You know, we recorded her only for 2 days. One of the things that we said on that day is that we need to get to talk to somebody there. I don't know what it is called now. CR Swart. Because we would love one day to take her there and record her, just right on the scene, you know, about that ride. Now we are laughing, you know. Let us talk. Because we are recording, I've said it's not going anywhere. It's for the archives. We're documenting what happened to us and to preserve it. So let us talk. But before you talk, introduce yourself. Say your name and your surname, please. Secondly, speak out so that it could be captured. And I saw you, some of you, when I said I'm interested in strikes, some people cringed because I don't have time to explain what I meant. But for anyone that has to express that I'm not satisfied here, we need people to be assertive and say it. So let us talk. Anyone?
Maybe it's not a question, it can be a comment.
Yeah, yeah. Question or comment, Sissy? Please.
Excuse me, Lorraine Richards from the local community journalist. Greta, it's so sad to hear that your torture was inflicted by huge grown men, and you were a tiny little girl at the time. Now, as you speak, do you feel that when you speak about your torture and all that you have been through, do you feel that it's cathartic to you?
Oh, okay.
Each time you express yourself orally.
So we'll take two more. And Usesi will respond. A comment, a question, anything. Usesi, thank you.
If there's nobody, I can
Please. Good.
Oh, sanibonani. Igama uNtuthuko Khuzwayo. I'm from on the other side of town. We got connected through Umla's Youth League.
Oh.
And from that side. Thank you for your contribution and also for the lecture. You are helping us to retrace our steps, and it's very inspiring. We all believe that there is a pot of gold on the other side of the rainbow, and we put so much energy in making sure that one day we'll reach that pot of gold. It seems as if like there's somebody who's shooting a gold post. When you're about to see it, that is there, it moves. So I understand the pain and the feeling. We grew up in barracks. I'm so proud of the share that you have the barracks in Umla's. I'm still there. And I always boast one thing about that small community, that big community, not small. That big community that I'm always saying is so complex, but it's so safe to live where I'm staying. When I read the newspapers, they are saying the space is so dangerous. But you learn to live in that space and get inspired and adapt in that particular space. Thank you for your contribution. I'm not here to steal the platform, but the reality is, in the 80s, you gave us a space to maneuver. And we maneuvered in that space. Just outside the history and everything, the sport part of the department. Umlazi, we used to have sport fields. So in 1982, Umlazi was then declared the KwaZulu government a homeland space. So Elamonville, they were part of the Natal. It was called the Port Natal. So it meant that for us who were playing sport in Umlazi, we would need to access sport fields because there were the sport fields that we had were not adequate. But at least before 1982, we were able to have an organized sport. But from 1985, it was so difficult. So it meant that you need to have some kind of a passport to cross where you enter the robot at V section, not at V section, at the Hayes. So you need to have some kind of a passport. So that passport for us was a sporting club joined Durban and country, then playing at Imlaz. So joining Durban and country meant that we had access to better facilities. I grew up playing here, and Kichima Sports Field. Because the area that I was zoned into playing was not allocated resources for that. Then today, you look at this professional sport in South Africa. So that's why I appreciate, because I grew up in this world. I know people by faces and names in this world. Oh. At the corner of Tala Road and Quality, down there is the old man who used to run taxis.
Oh yeah, Frankie's taxis.
Frankie, you still alive, Frankie?
No, passed away.
Mama?
She's still alive.
Wow, what an energy. So, and also there was also another side of life in this world. There was foregrounds here. So when you came here, you make sure that we are clean and nice, because the so-called colored ladies were... But the reality was that now, we had to be connected with this world for operations purpose, from Umlazi and Langonve. So our entry point was through sport, and it worked. So you talk of interrogation and everything, I can make arrangements. I can connect to somebody and somebody there, and make some contact and arrangement and try to connect. Some of the guys I grew up with, they got missing, they were caught, and they never survived to go to Kwachombikas. We used to call it Kwachombikas, where Tyler was operating at the special branch unit of Tyler Special Branch. At the police station on the other side. Brighton Beach Police Station.
Very cruel people.
Yeah. So, which led me to be committed in tracing them. So, but I'm not yet to do it. Like, I'm highlighting your contribution. And when you were crushed, the team that was operating here, and also the guys that were the DLPs that were also trapped into guys sent to open those DLPs and got destroyed around this world. We were young then, we knew. But the reality is that you made a contribution. It's painful to talk of the future that we thought all of us were contributing to. But the reality is that it looks as if somebody is pushing the pot of gold. I am not too sure whether is there a format for us again to recover back to UDF, because I still feel that as UDF we had a common purpose. Something happened there was the conference, and that's something that we need to talk about. The first conference of the ANC in 1990. Some of us were there, we observed, we got really, really discouraged to participate. What we observed today. So today I can stand and say, that observation was correct. But the struggle continues, Aluta continues. Thank you.
No, before you sit down, what is a DLP? Yeah, so. Yeah.
It sounds familiar.
No, yeah, it's very familiar, I know, but it has to come from you. What is a DLP?
Is this machine on or off?
No, it's on. It's
I'll
on.
say
No.
No, it's a dead letter box.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a box.
Yeah, it's a dead letter box.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Maybe some of you don't understand. Say, for example, when we would bring the weapons into the country, now because we were not trained how to use them, well, initially we weren't trained, but those that were trained, whether in Russia or Berlin or Senegal, all different countries, then we would go and bury those weapons in places that's why it was called a dead letterbox. I think the security forces eventually caught on that these weapons are not hidden under the bed, or we dig holes and bury them, and it's nicely protected. So a certain comrade would be told, like say for example, from the Saka or from Botswana, we'd be told, you need to tell so-and-so that that's where it is, because he must go and fetch it and do X, Y, and Z. It was mostly economic sabotage those days. So yeah, that's what it was. There's a lot of secret codes that we used. Sometimes you would write on a piece of paper so small, say like this, and rolled up like a cigarette, with our grandpas. They put tobacco, what do you call those? Huh? Yeah, not like say it again. I think someone said it there. You had box of tobacco, but old people, huh? Plachi. Yeah. There's another Zulu word that our grandpas used to use. I think it's like that, yeah. But even tighter. I used to carry all those in my trousers all over the show. As we come in the country. Now one day I said to myself, how can this thing be so important? Let me look what it is. As I open it up, there's a whole lot of words. I mean, letters and numbers. What does it mean? You would have to be trained to understand that code, so that these comrades here could not just do their own thing. You can't just go and blow this and blow. You have to wait for an instruction. Others will do the intelligence work, then you would get the instruction. Others bring in the weapons. Because well organized, people thought that Mponte was a bunch of mad people running around doing violent things. No, it was a real military setup. But okay, mostly outside of the country. Of course, there were no cell phones those days, and yeah. Huh? So it's very difficult to communicate. But anyway.
And also just to add, with those codes and taking to somebody that you don't know, so that if one of you is arrested, you won't be able to trace and reveal everybody. Let's talk. Questions, comments, clarity?
Yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Greta. Mine is just really to say that I really appreciated your lecture, but towards the end I felt a bit anxious and also felt a bit defeated, which really, I'm sure, as you have worked for government, as a government employee, we shouldn't allow people who don't follow the constitution to win the game. People who are discriminating, they are doing it against the laws of the country. And I think as government, it should be at the top of the list of priorities that we address that emerging trend in our society. I don't think it has any place. If people who are in charge of very key departments who are able to decide the future of our communities, have no sense of what the Constitution wants them to do, I don't think they have any place in government. So I suppose these conversations are part of an effort as archives and record service. And I'm sure by, I suppose, late this evening, there will be about more than 100 people who have listened to this talk, because we are still going to post it in our Facebook pages and elsewhere. So the message is going to go out. Don't be discouraged that there are less people you see here. I suppose it's a part of the new thing. Instead, I remember even churches, big churches, are complaining all the time that they don't see people coming to church. But I suppose we just have to adjust, and I'm sure a lot will have a lot of people listening to what you've just said. This is really not a question, but I just want to get your view on really on the future, because you stopped just when we are about to articulate the future that you see before you, because part of it is really the past, the present, and really it will be assuring to us to see that you are still committed, you are still very much committed to the future that you have fought so hard for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just, I think for now, your responses, please.
Yeah, you see, most of us political prisoners don't like to talk about the torture because it's so dangerous psychologically for us to remember it. Because when you talk about it, like as I was talking about those men that were interrogating me and rushing towards me, it's like I can physically, I'm here but I'm there in the interrogation room. I can see their faces, so it is very difficult. Our own families and our best friends, we don't like to talk about it. Some friends of mine invited me to a party and then they were just pouring all the whiskey, and now when they thought I was very relaxed now, they wanted to know, Greta, what happened in prison? Were you tortured? How did you survive? So I'm talking, then they're questioning, and I realized, hey, these people think it's easy to get someone, even if you're relaxed because of the whiskey. How can I put it? A few days later, you can't push the memories back now. Back, you know, like there's a coffin or a box here in your brain. It's like asking a woman who was a rape victim, you know, gang rape, to tell you about it in detail. She goes back to the scene of that crime, you know, psychologically. Like I was telling you about the suffocation. As I'm telling you, I can actually see his face. Right? I can actually see. Yes, it's reliving it. I can actually see his face as he's putting it on. Even when he was swinging me by my hair. I know what made me look down. I could see how he's biting his lips. No, he's trying to make it very tight. So we avoid talking about it. Even now, if you ask me to talk about prison, I will only tell you about the food, how bad the food was, eating porridge, oats, you know, with the weevils in. We complain every day to the white commandants and sergeants. They just look at you like they're not hearing a word. Till you think, oh, am I begging her to give me decent food? I'll eat that weak oats, but not with the weevils in. Then you say, all right, fine, I'll tick out the weevils. By the time you eat it, it's cold. Then you say, no, I need to eat warm oats. So you eat it with the weevils. So I can tell you about all those things because it's funny when I look back. But there's certain things I cannot tell no one, not even my own family. I can never tell them. I should go to the priest and tell him, hey, you know what? Yeah. Okay, let me not tell you that one. I just remembered when I was at Westfield, okay, I'll tell you. There was all these people, I was not yet awaiting trial, but we were out of the CR SWAT, we were already charged, and we were at a Westfield prison. And I'm locked up in an isolation cell, the only one on that whole floor. Like I'm now the most dangerous prisoner in the country. You know, they treat you like that. Anyway, this white priest, tall, big-built man with a German accent, with a collar like he's a Catholic priest, and he says he's a Catholic priest, has come to take my confession. I said, how? Did I call you to come and take my confession? The sergeant comes and takes me out of my cell to the office at the end of the passage. So I said, no, I don't need to make a confession. I've made my confession when I was in the lockup cell at CR SWAT. I confessed to my God directly. I don't need to confess via you. Yes, but you're a Catholic. All Catholics confess to the priest. I said, yes, I know, but I'm not confessing to you. Then he performed. And he said, you probably killed those white people there at Muguzi because of all the black children that were killed in the streets of Soweto and what. I just looked at him and said, and then now why is he talking politics? Then he says, don't you know that those black children deserve to be shot in the streets? I said, I don't understand. What do you mean? They were throwing stones at the police. I said, oh, so for a stoning, they were given a bullet. I got up, I said, I don't need to listen to you. Bye-bye. So I went back to my cell. A few days later, the same man came. So I refused to go to the office. So he comes right to my cell door. He holds on to it. He says, who are you not to confess to me? I said, no, go away, go away. In the end, now I'm a township girl. You must understand. If I'm tired of speaking English to you, I will speak French. You know township French, not Paris French now. You know township French. I told him, what? Off here. Don't you dare come back, I'll report you. I'll report you to the Catholic Church. When was I going to get opportunity to report him? But he simply got nervous and he left. And I said to myself, first time in my life, I swear, a Catholic priest. If he was actually a priest. So I can assure you it wasn't cathartic to talk about the torture in prison. Look, it's now almost 30-something years since we were released. What year was that? February 1989, I was released. I used to suffer to push back the memories, so I used to avoid talking about it. But with the July riots, and we all were living in terror, because now we're on Quality Street. It's a main thoroughway from the industrial area there also. So for some reason, all the torture came rushing back. All the living in isolation cells, because I was always locked up all by myself, because you're a terrorist, you're a danger to the society, you're a danger to other prisoners. So it came back. So since July last year to now, I can't push back those memories. But now at least I'm able to, I don't tell no one, I tell myself about it. I'm cathartic to myself, sort of. And then I laugh and I think, look how frightened he was when I was on the floor there, dead, what he thought. Now when I woke up and I said, hey, why am I on the floor? I realized I'm interrogating my interrogators. And the fact that he was biting his lips. So certain things is funny. Like they screaming and shouting at me and asking me questions and I'm praying, our Father who art in heaven. And I'm actually going like this to them, our Father who art in heaven. I mean, they can't hear me, right? But through my eyes, I am praying. And because I'm so scared of them, I make sure I look them in their eyes. Just in case he does a sudden movement and he hurts me, I can maybe anticipate it. Okay, I think I can safely talk about this one. At that place here, Swat Square, remember there's the railway station, Ngeni. So there's a lot of rats that come from that place. When I say rats, I mean rats, big, like these cats you see running around here. Yes, so they come into the cell when it's early evening, when it's supper time now. They crawl under the storm water part of the door where the rainwater goes out. Because it's a cell and then it's a yard. So they come in, 3 or 4, then they'll be sitting by my feet. They want my food. Now, I could give it to them, but I think when they finish eating, they'll stay here waiting for more food. So I'm not even looking at the plate. I'm eating like this. Because I'm concentrating on their eyes. But I was the kind of woman where even a mouse, those tiny little ones are from the garden mice, I used to jump on the chair and jump on the bed until it's past me. Yeah, am I sitting and looking at them. I was so traumatized. But it's like they will say, never show a dog that you're scared. A barking dog. Because it also gets tense and then it will bite you. So did I have to show these rats? I'm not scared of them, but I'm dead scared. And then I would tell myself, no, they're not rats. They are snakes, because I'm not scared of snakes. I would say they're crocodiles. No, they're not rodents with germs and disease. I would say they are creatures from the sea or from the river. But it's cathartic now when I'm able to see the funny side of besides the torture, even in prison, when I was segregated from the other comrades and made to go and stay down there in the basement, all because they believed that coloureds are the most violent prisoners in prison. You know, there's all those men who they operate in gangs according to numbers, 26 gangs, 28 gangs. Now, I'm not aware of any woman in prison, coloured woman, who operate these violent gangs. So they said, you know, you, we're speaking Afrikaans, you know, you kleurling mense, coloured people, you're in the prisons, you're the most dangerous. I'm thinking, duh, that's a stereotype. So then I was taken down there to the basement. So that part I have not told people because I'm too scared to relive that part. Yeah, so I don't really laugh. I can't find the funny side of that one. Okay, so it's cathartic only in terms of telling myself about it and looking at finding the funny side. And I agree with you about that shifting of the goalposts. And you know, the sad part about the ANC and maybe all our all our political organizations who really believed in what's on paper, the constitution and the policies, they allow themselves to be manipulated, from what I've seen, by white business people, especially those in the construction sector. I mean, it's so painful to see. You've got a policy called BEE and triple BEE and whatever, but white people still get the billions, despite all that. So you need to abolish that thing then, because they know how to manipulate it. The only time you'll see black people are getting all the tenders is the small things like this catering, cleaning services. So you're not helping black people the way the apartheid government helped white people to become so economically empowered. When we talk to our white friends, it's in about when the National Party gave us those opportunities, we worked very hard to become what we are today. So yeah, what do you mean you worked hard? You got up at 5 o'clock to go do your farming, but your farmers, your farm labourers, they were up at 3 o'clock. So you worked hard, and so did the black people on those farms, those coloured people on those farms. But be that as it may, so they have these, I suspect, these underhand agreements. Look here, I will get the tender, I will outsource 90% to you. It's horrific. Just meeting with some of these construction companies. It's all black names, black company name, black shareholders. Then when they rock up, it's white men. Hey, why is this meeting full of white men? Because yes, it's all black shareholders. We are the main ones. We run the company. We are the 90% of that money comes to us. So all right, it's fine. Let's talk. Then the future. I think the future is bleak because how can I say? Coloured and Indian people feel so defeated by the disappointment. The wonderful country we were supposed to have, and we had it in the first, I would say, 7 to 10 years. That disappointment depresses them. And the July riots, it finished us. And the sad thing about that riots is that it made the coloureds, whites and Indians come closer together, which is not a good thing. Yeah. You need all races to be together. So now the propaganda, I'm sorry to say, but mostly from white people, was unbelievable. See, everything is directed towards black people, which is not good. Yes, you can fight the ANC directly on WhatsApp, it's fine. They know that they're open to criticism, they just have to take it. But it united us, but more to defend ourselves against black people. But I think there's a little bit of hope because, you see, this thing of all the businesses here that are here in the Bluff, excuse me, where they seem to think it's politically correct to appoint only black people into all the positions at Checkers, Pick and Pay, you name it, Nando's. So what do you think the colours and Indians are doing? It's the same with Engine. Engine won't give us money for a creche. It's a coloured or Indian township. But they will go right over us to Lamontville and do one. It's wonderful they're getting it. But why do you run away from the colours and Indians? So we've started naming and shaming them on Facebook, WhatsApp, and saying the Department of Labour determines that KZN, 80% of all jobs, private sector or government, must go to black people. That's wonderful. It don't say 100%. So that other 20 is for colours, Indians, and whites. So why can't you give us the little 20%? The sky won't fall. So now we've been pressurizing them. We say, even if it's to clean the floors, give us colours a job. Even if it's to mix the dugger, give us that. Give us anything, but don't pretend we don't exist. So now we see Checkers feeling embarrassed, so they're employing other races. Never mind, only to pack the groceries, it's fine. And Pick and Pay is starting to do that. But we need to intensify that. But I can see if I organize a group, it's going to only be a few of us who are going to go and petition over there. But still. So I think that's the future for us. A luta continua is to continue the struggle, sadly, us colours, Indians and whites.
Time now is 3 minutes to 12. But let me not close other people outside. Do you have anything? I warned you at the beginning that, you know, when it comes to these sensitive issues, people, they want to perform as if there's nothing there. Sis? Oh, hi, I'm Kali Moses. Then the boss is special by one and one. What's this?
Yeah, it's for me. Sanibonani uphumzela kaMandla ngisebenza Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Firstly, I want to say to myself, I thank God that I came here because I had something else that was pressing not to come. It's such an emotional talk. I wouldn't really say a lecture. Maybe myself as Upotunto says, I grew up in Lamontville. I did my what they call now grade 2, grade 3 and grade 4 here in Lamontville. Yeah. No, I'm just saying what they call now. And then I moved to Umlazi. So a little bit of what Upututu has been saying was that we were in the middle of that. And I was even saying to my the grandparents that I lived with, I wonder why did they choose to go to a more Zulu place than live in Lamontville, because in Lamontville we were under KwaZulu-Natal. But anyway, what worries me or concerns me the most from this talk is the whole issue of us discriminating amongst ourselves. I'm not going to say against, I'm just going to say amongst ourselves. And in particular, I don't know what I say, the 3 races. God, I cannot to say much. I just want to say Mom Greta, because that's what I would say. Imina. I wish there were more colored people like you, because I'm sitting here and I hear that you say the minority groups, which is the Indians and the Colored, are feeling the pinch now, whilst they were part of the struggle. But not all of them are feeling the pinch as you do. Some of them are still keeping the high, that they are still more important than the black person. And as much as black people, that is us, the Africans, doing the same amongst ourselves. So and I sit here and I say, like I said, I thank God I came here to, well, for me is to pray more, that we get more people who will, in the sense, get closer to where you are, and then all of us move in that particular direction, because I think we are somewhere in the zoo. We don't even, we're not scared of the fishes, and like you said, we just have to be scared of ourselves. That's the way we are treating each other. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. I so wish we were more than this in this room, so that because like I said, you look at a colored person or an Indian person and you think, hey, I mean, I thought we were uniting. You look at a black person, because I don't want to say I'm seeing that with the other races and not seeing it with other people. There are some black people that I'm scared to get close to. No matter how big positions they sit in, whether in government or in society, but it's so scary. And if at least one person would be here to hear all that, that thing they did to you, and think, people that were fighting fought so much and went through such pain, and we are busy playing our own games and thinking. I always like animal farming, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. We are in something that we cannot even explain ourselves. But from here, I think mine is going to be praying more that God help us see where we come from, so that at least our as we go forward, it becomes more clearer for everyone, so that each one takes their right lane. Thank you, Ma'am President.
Sissy, it's your turn.
Excuse me, I was just going to ask Greta, during your time in solitary confinement, did you get reading material?
Good.
No, my comment is on the emotions. I'm also a theatre practitioner, and so one works around in trying to capture the emotions and express the emotions. And when you're talking about the giggling and the laughing, I've observed it with a number of those who have survived difficult moments. In one of the productions that I had a chance to work with in production side was the Baby Tsepang story. Do you remember the Baby Tsepang? So we did, with Darafuta, we did a theater presentation which toured the world. Every time when it's presented to different communities, we will observe how this community deals with certain moments of pain. And then the subjugated groups will reflect that kind of giggles. And I was working with a producer, Morris Podro. He's from Durban, but he stayed a lot in in Canada. So he was always missing the point to say, because this moment is written for this kind, we are expecting people to be emotionally connected. Why are they giggling? So I had to sit down with him and say, look here, we have those gray zones as the subjugated group. And this happened here, KZN, we had to do it in Isizulu, KZN, do it in Afrikaans, in Sutherland, Calvinia, and all Northern Cape, and English version in other areas. And then the third word is English version. But whenever they were a majority subjugated group, you would pick that up. Just highlighting that too. And it's so difficult to come back to those painful moments of reflecting back there. Last year, July, I was at home. If I can share with you what I wrote to our politicians, telling them before it starts, telling them that in terms of operations and covert operations, what is coming. And when it came, and I would share with you, because it's a Facebook material that I did there, I would share with you, and it's people that I thought I was respecting, who are influential in the system, to say, wash out. This is not what is happening, what is coming is not what we think it's happening. But people tend to do the same thing. They giggle on it. And then it happened also, you check their comments, they are still also giggling on it. They are not in the physical moment to say, this thing is dangerous. So we survived a trauma. I think in terms of theory, we don't have a format for rehabilitation of surviving the apartheid moment. And also ourselves now, post-apartheid, it looks like most of us are still trapped there. Yeah. And it's so difficult to work with the young ones. This is my child. This one is my child. Oh. And she don't know that chapter of the life that we are in. I try by all means to share with them, but they can't imagine the life that we live. And now and then you are buckled up in that environment. You just become somebody that everyone just gets surprised to say, why you act so like this now? Because of those gray areas that you can't go there. I remember there was an advert on SABC for it's women only insurance scheme. Oh, yeah. So they were doing that on so this guy says, man has a box where everything that he does not need, he puts it there. So women have a box for everything that goes in there. So we have that box as people who survive that moment as they are sharing. A subjugated group, at the moment of that, they giggle and react in a way that we can't expect. So I'm not sure that is there a psychological theory that we can tap in for that kind of a rehabilitation, because it's difficult to deal with that. Thank you.
Maybe just to add on that one. You know, when it comes to trauma that happened to you, you know, each time when I look at my own family, Amahlubi, we were defeated in 1873. But up to this day, the hatred amongst ourselves, the anger, and most of the time it is always misdirected. So there's another danger in our country, because we always talk of 1948. We have never looked at the effect of imperialism and colonialism. We just take the now. Sometimes the ANC spoke of 1913 Land Act, which is just yesterday. But what happened long time ago? Sometimes we refer to Jan van Riebeeck, 1652, 6 April. but Vasco da Gama passed here. 1497. So the deepness of this thing. And each time when you talk about these things, people will say, no, man, just forget about this thing. Without understanding, people that are product of that. So maybe one of the things is that we're just looking at it from 1948. So those amongst us that have been fortunate to be outside South Africa or outside the continent, when you look at black people there, or lastly, by the way, today, just today, in 1501, the King of Spain, together with his wife, the Queen Isabel, Ferdinand, the King, Ferdinand, the Atlantic slave trade started today, where black people from Portugal that were born there, Portugal and Spain, were to be taken to the, what do you call that? When you put Dominican Republic in Haiti, it was today, 1501. So it's very relevant that we talk like this. Up to you, sis.
Okay, just the question over there. Yes, there was reading material. For example, I could order the Sunday Tribune. That's now when you're already sentenced in Clarkston prison, but your family have to send money once a month. But when that Sunday Tribune comes, it's like this. Anything political, they've cut it out. Or depending on where it is in the paper, they'll use a black Cokie pen. And so even if you try to hold it to the light eye, you can't see what that is. But at least it was something. And they had a library. They would come with a trolley full of books, but absolute rubbish books. It was mostly Western novels. I mean, I'm a woman, they're bringing books that men like, the novels of Western. But because a person is so desperate, you're all by yourself, there's no one to talk to, so you read those books. And so you get transported out of the basement into the Wild West, all the animals and the shooting and the horses. So yeah, we had that library. You couldn't go to the library. They'll choose nonsense books and bring it to you. But in the last year that I was there, well, the last part of it, I asked for permission to study. I wanted to do honors in social work. They said, "You're mad." They couldn't believe I want to improve myself. Like, duh, you're a terrorist, you're nothing. Although I wasn't found guilty of any acts of terrorism, I was charged with it. I was found guilty of all the acts related to the Edendale incident, where we went into the hospital, took our comrade out, and took him out of the country. We had to. I mean, they were going to kill him. And he was, okay, long story. So I said, okay, fine. Can I at least study some first year courses? What do you want to study? I'll study sociology, philosophy, and social anthropology. All right, those 3 subjects you can have that. So I registered with UNISA. So it was wonderful to read all those books, especially the social anthropology. I never took the Khoisan, the indigenous people of this country, seriously until I read that book. And I also discovered only in 2018 my great-great-grandfather, who was a Griqua. My parents educated, especially my father, that you're a Zulu girl. Yes, they did. Fine, I'm a Zulu girl. But now I'm a Zulu girl and I'm a Griqua.
Nice combination.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, fighting one.
Yeah, you see, the common mistake that the Khoisan people are timid and gentle. No, they look that way because they're very humble. But push them until they finish. Come here. Yeah. So yes, that was the only reading material. The lunch came out.
Yeah, yes. No,
I thought half
maybe allow me it was just the beginning today, to close here. But before I do that, let me call the Calder de Vries. Tommy, just come.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending the morning with us. A special thank you to our guest speaker and gracious host, Ms. Greta Apalgren-Narkedien. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and for allowing us to preserve it in the archives for current and future use. And as a small token of appreciation, please accept this from us.
Oh, I love gifts. Big or small. Thank you. Oh, I love chocolates.
You know, these folks,
Pictures.
they love their
Social media profile.
yes.
Special thanks to the KZN DSAC team and also the team here at the Conference Centre for the planning and the execution of this event. It wouldn't be possible without you, so thank you very much to each and every one of you. And before you leave, please join us for some light refreshments around the corner. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day and have a good weekend.
Maybe let me just say this. Ukelda, we interviewed them in 2013. So as part of the panel, so I won't mention the person's position, but this person said, you say you are taking her. How is she going to communicate with Amakus? I'm not going to say what I said. And the person said, no, so it's fine, Makoroko is fine. Anyway, he's going to work with you. So you see these stereotypes.
Yeah.
So this is not the African National Congress saying this. This is me now, the official, being employed here because I've got powers, because I'm part of the panel. Ever since I've been working with her, I've never been disappointed. So, thank you. So that is why it's how I talk to them. They will try to say Baba, Mr. Hatte, but I call them by name, like I say in Ntombi. So thank you. So thanks so much, folks. Thank you.
Iyolomlando esiwakhayo kulolusi. Iyolomlando esiwakhayo kulolusi. Sibambaneni webawethu wemaduku. Sugcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Sizishiyela misa. Aswagcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Thina swagcineni amasiko ethu wemaduku. Sizishiyela abantwana. Oh, city. City, city, oh city, city, city.